Alright, looks like we're gonna have to call the meeting to order without Nate. Yeah, is that, I've got the angle here.
Oh. It's not your rec, you can elect him for anything you want now.
Yeah, right. We can actually. Alright, I guess, everybody review the minutes, I don't think we've done that yet. We're good on minutes and, just waiting, check your bill of minutes. Good?
Yeah.
Good. Good. All right, I make a motion to accept the minutes as they are.
Second.
All in favor? All right, we've got some quick stuff to do in-house here. We've got to elect a chair and a vice chair. Anybody want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll nominate you to be chairman, right?
I second.
All those in favor? All right, so vice chair, I nominate Nate. He's not here.
Stacy.
I think we discussed it. I think he's fine taking it. My second nomination. If he's not, we'll deal with that later. All right, so that's done. Ralph, would you oppose if we have a quick site plan review? It should take us 5-10 minutes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead with Mr. LaValle first. It would just make it a little easier.
Okay.
All right, so it's a pre-application meeting. I just did the application. All right, so doesn't look like there's a whole lot here. I think you're going to need a little bit more than what you have. Do you have anything that you want to say first?
No, I just want to say that I would like to open up a redemption center.
Understood, understood.
Couple of things, Mr. LaValle. We need a complete application with all the things that are listed on the front page before we can even make any kind of consideration. Second, just so you know, we don't see redemption center in the permitted uses, so we're not quite sure where that's going to go.
All right, we'd have to figure that out. I don't think the redemption center would be exclusively prohibited, but we have to figure that out, so.
But you know
But
what
they're.
we're talking about?
Not really.
You want to show them?
Sure, if you want. I don't know.
So, and you can come in and look at this is all the use, all the kinds of things we can allow, right? Okay, so these are all the things that are allowed, redemption center isn't in there. We would have to either, I don't know, if we could, we're gonna have to get some guidance on what to do, but before we can even do that, you need to come in with all the documents on that list. If you need,
Documents as far as what?
it's all listed on the front page, right?
Yeah, we've got a few things here. We need some type of sketch, you know, we need to know a few things here. I know you did fill this application out, but there are several things here that are listed on the front that we would need. We might not need all of it, but we need to have some understanding of the way things are gonna lay out there. So a sketch, maybe letting us know what the distance is from the property lines, things like that. It is pretty much laid out here. I see that you've just attached the deed, basically. We're gonna need a little more than that. Is there anybody here opposing this project right now? You guys had a different project you were opposing, huh?
Maplewood is becoming the commercial hub of Parsonsfield. I know about it.
So, do you have anything you'd like to say now?
Not until there's a complete application. Thank you.
All right, so that's what we're gonna need from you, is the complete application. Again,
You could get help from either Lindsay, who's an assistant town clerk, or from Jesse
the
Winters.
code enforcement officer should be able to help you with that
You come
too.
in with the application, sit down with them, they'll help you get through it.
Do you
Jesse will help
have,
me with it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
do you have the original copy, Wayne?
Do I have the original?
The
copy?
original one? I have a copy. Did you have the original one? You can take this one if you want.
Let me get that one, make sure.
Okay.
Sure, I can get as many as-
Because, like, what he's talking about is all
Yeah.
that stuff, but you can always give us a call or just call us
Yeah.
too,
Okay.
if you're confused on.
Yeah, this just a confusing process for me.
Yeah, it
And
can
I
be
feel that there isn't any difference.
difficult to understand.
Okay, are we all set here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Probably see you next meeting.
Righto. All right, so we'll move on to Watson Woods. So is there anything you guys want to start with?
Yeah, just want to give you a quick update. We've got the peer review comments from CPS. We responded to those. In general, what we've done is refined the boundaries on lots 7 and 8 so that they come out on Hussey Road. And we put the driveway in and a driveway easement to allow that access back to lot 6 on the plans. When we revised the boundary lines, lot 7 did not have test pits for septic systems on it, so we went out and did test pits for those. So those 2 lots now are up to speed. We've added 2 notes to the drawing. One was requiring the homeowners to maintain the brush along the road in order to maintain site distance so that they continue to conform. And we added a note that when they grade the lots out, they're graded out in a uniform manner so that you get sheet flow into the surrounding buffer. And I think that brings you up to date on those particular items. The last email I had from CES was they were in agreement with our stormwater and we had responded adequately to all of their comments.
Yep. Any questions from the board for the applicant?
I have a question, I'm not sure, but I was just gonna look in the ordinance and see. This driveway is now serving 3 homes.
Yes,
Doesn't it require a road, a town road?
I don't believe so.
I'm not sure, that's what I'm saying.
The intent was to make it so that the 3 driveways came out on Hussey Road at the
Right.
request of the board.
Which is what we asked you for.
Yeah, if it can't service 3, then we would go back to the Route 160 of those driveways. We think that's the way the board wanted to go and the best route for the driveways.
Do you have a question?
Yes. Are you aware that CES was basing all their research on an application that is not what's in front of us right now?
As far as I know, they got a copy of the application that.
This application was not in front of us when we contracted with CES. This is a different application. It's a total different configuration of lots here.
Those were given to you as part of the,
After we contracted with CES, after we accepted your application, this new application showed up yesterday. And it's a different one. Your lots are all reconfigured differently. You've got other homes on Hussey now, and
those were shown to you at the public hearing.
but this wasn't what was, this was CES. No, I'm sorry, this was not in front of CES or us at the time we contracted. This is a change.
My
We responded to
understanding,
CES's comments with that plan to address the.
Yeah, but it wasn't at our last meeting when we contracted with CES. We had no idea that this was gonna be done.
Sure you did. We went through the public hearing. We showed the 2 lots and that we were coming out onto Hussey Road. That was discussed at the public hearing.
Yes.
If you missed that, you missed the public hearing.
So, all right, Cliff, what are you saying? You're saying a complete new application. I don't know, that might be an overstatement. I think does look like there was a bit of an adjustment here. But was that adjustment in response to what CES requested?
That was a response to what we requested on the sidewalk.
Right, so,
Response to what you requested at the site walk resulted in the change in 7-8 and the driveway onto Hussey. You made some minor adjustments based on CES comments.
right, that's what I think
Yeah.
was the case, right? So the minor adjustments, what you're saying is, seem to have shifted a lot. It's a little further back on the Hussey Road, just to accommodate access there. Is that the minor adjustment?
Correct. If you go out on Hussey Road, the best place to put the driveway is where we put it. If you recall from the site walk, there's a slight rise there,
Right.
and we put it right at the top of the rise, so that you can see in both directions.
So, any other questions by the board?
The total length of that driveway. Is it over 500 feet? It's not the size.
Tom, do you know what the length of the driveway up Hussey Road is from end to end?
It would be roughly 400 feet. That boundary line that splits the 2 lots is 368 feet, 69 feet.
From the road?
Yeah, so it's time you get to the building envelope, it's probably 400 feet, something like that. The easement itself is 370 roughly.
What was your question, Cliff?
Well, I've got 2 pieces. One, I think it's not realistic or fair to sell a lot where a landowner has to maintain brush cutting constantly in order to have safe sight distance for driveways and other vehicles. And I believe that it's close to 400 feet of maintenance that a landowner may have to take care of, and that is just totally unacceptable. I looked at the site several times, and it looks like it's more than brush. There's earth that would need to be moved for it to be completely safe. That's piece 1. I hope that you have received this. I sent this to everybody.
I read the first page.
Good. I would like to make this available to everybody in the public area here who hasn't gotten one of these yet. Please pass these out. to other people, there's a few people in the back there. It clearly states in our ordinance and subdivision regulations, protection of significant wildlife habitat and important habitat areas. The following guidelines are designed to protect the significant wildlife resources identified in the municipality. The board recognizes that the wildlife management must take into account many site-specific variables. Applicants proposing to subdivide land within identified wildlife resources must consult a Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife qualified biologists and provide their written comments to the board. The guidelines of this section shall apply to only those subdivisions which include significant wildlife habitat and resources. I want people to refer to the document I sent to everybody on board. I want you to look carefully at in the center of that document on where it says 182 acres. If you will look real carefully, that dark green line to the above 182 is Hussey Road. The dark line, thinner line below is Route 160. If you notice, the 3,362 acres is what we consider very protected land. It's called the Levitt Plantation. If you notice on that legend, it says focus areas of statewide ecological significance. Focus areas of statewide ecological significance have been designated based on an unusually rich convergence of rare plants and animal occurrences. This focus area boundaries were drawn up by the Maine Natural Areas Program and the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Biologists. If you look carefully at 107 and 182 acres are all in that significant area. Now, I have a real problem with you telling me that you can put in 8 homes in this spot, especially there's areas that are not 250 feet away from the Levitt Plantation. There's areas where the Levitt Plantation actually butt right up to the property. And the road is not a buffer. And we talked about density. And I have a real problem of reading the regulations and seeing what's clearly stated and referenced over and over and over and over in the comprehensive plan. And right here in the ordinances, that you can put in 8 homes in this small area that's deemed to be highly conserved and undeveloped habitat. It is private property, we understand that, and you have every right to do whatever you like, but however, if we look at our ordinances, we look at the state recommendations for this area, this certainly doesn't match up at all. Not a bit.
Can I see a copy of that?
Sure. So I have a real problem with that you think 8 homes right packed into this area, and possibly later on down the line more homes, which is not decided will it or won't it happen, is going to have no impact whatsoever. The biologists you provided, the study that CES did, had no mention of the Levitt Plantation. Matter of fact, I don't even believe they saw a map like this. And that's a beef I have with what we asked them to look at. Because it's clear that this is a very significant ecological location, and there's no way you can tell me that that kind of density in this particular location flies without any problems. If we were to go in front of a court of law and show all this information we would have every right to deny 8 places here. Every right. Based on our subdivision law recommendations and the comprehensive plan. I'm not against, we need housing. There's no question about it. I'm with you. But 8 in that spot? No. I could see 3, maybe 4, but not 8. Especially, we're talking about Great Brook. These are this whole area, the headwaters of Great Brook. All the drainage comes right down through there. There's no way in the world, no matter what kind of, stormwater management you have, that Great Brook isn't going to be affected. That's a salmon brook.
All right.
That's it.
You know,
I said my piece.
Right. Anybody else got anything to say? Anybody from the board?
Yeah, I think we're kind of between a rock and a hard place here. And as much as we refer to the letter that you guys have seen and all the feedback we got on the letter, there seems to be 2 things going on. What the comprehensive plan recommends and what's enforceable. I really don't want to see this go to a court of law, and I'm not quite sure how to proceed. I'm still troubled by the density thing. I got an email from Mr. Anderson, who's sitting behind you, in which I believe you guys have received, and it shows that in the area that your development would go in, the density would be 21.6 houses per mile. He also surveyed 2 areas that are in the village residential district, and they come out at 15.4 and 11.3. Supposedly, density in the village residential is greater than it is in rural residential. I'm not quite sure how to proceed because there is you've quoted and quoted correctly, and I'm sure that you're more proficient in the administration of the letter of the law than the density regulations that are stipulated as 2 houses. Being rural residential area, subdivision could be 2 acres per house, and your subdivision complies with that. So, I'm not sure where to go with this.
I feel the same way. I mean, I would love to see 4 houses, but I don't see, it looks to me that they've acquiesced to our ordinances. I mean, that's what we were trying to push from the beginning. There was a point here where Tom submitted 6 houses on North Road. We probably should have settled, but it didn't conform to the ordinances at that point. So we pushed them to conform to the ordinances. Looks like they did, and they got 8 houses out of it. I mean, short of that, what ordinance, all right, I'm gonna ask anybody who's opposing the project, is there an ordinance that these folks have not conformed to that we should apply to them? I ask anybody, that's an open question to the audience. Ms. Lane.
I'll start with driveway permits and site distance.
Yeah, that's, all right, so from what I'm understanding there, the site distances were checked by our independent. I do have a little bit of a problem with.
Was the Hussey Road checked? Because I saw no reference to the road coming in on the Hussey Road. A driveway is defined as, driveway serves 2 houses or less.
Right.
This serves 3.
That's defined in our ordinance?
Yep, look at your definitions of driveway.
Do you wouldn't know where off the top of your head?
Beginning. The best I can give you, I don't know the page number.
Okay. I heard you mention that, Cliff. Do you know anything about that? Do you know what this is?
I understand from catching the ordinance too, that when you go to 3 houses, it is not considered a driveway, it's considered a road, and there will be cost to the town to do that.
Can I say something about that? I mean, that doesn't in any grave way affect the overall tenor of their application. They've made every effort to adjust these kind of specific things. And I don't think that would stand in the way of me voting for this project. I don't see that it's productive for any of us to nitpick stuff that's easily corrected and has been corrected right down the line.
In this case, I think we have to nitpick because we haven't been given an ethical ride through this whole process. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Cliff, but we have been, I mean, we've been holding, it's been a long ride, you're right. There were some things, some shenanigans in the beginning, but it does seem that at this point, things are starting to conform, and you know, we have to vote on that.
I do believe that site distance is very important and it's gonna
Right.
come back and bite us in the ass.
I agree. I was a little concerned with even the independent consultant saying, well, it looks like it would be good if somebody did. I mean, I would love for him to say it's good. I mean, is there any way we can have a definitive yes on that last one?
I think he gave you a definitive yes.
It wasn't definitive, Tom. It was sort of ambiguous. It was like, look, if they cut, then it should. That's what I said.
Brush cutting is pretty standard for any of those site
Right.
distance type things. We thought that the board would like the owner to take care of that to make sure it's maintained. If not, DOT takes care of it on the DOT road. If you have a problem with site distance and they want you to cut brush, they'll come out and cut brush. We didn't think that that was the direction that the board would want to go, was to have DOT do that, so that's why that's on there. If you want us to remove that, we can remove it, or we can say call DOT when you want the brush cut. I think that's a choice.
No, I wouldn't say to remove that, but it would have been, I mean, you know, again, not trying to nitpick or play hardball here, it would have been great if the brush would have been cut and he would have said, yeah, it meets. He did say it should meet. That's what I read. He said if the brush is cut, it should meet.
What they did was they measured the site distance and then, anyway, I'll let that speak for a
Yeah,
second.
I mean, if we'd gone out and cut brush,
Then it would have met. Is that what you're saying?
and people would have had an issue with us out there cutting.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe some trees too.
Brandon, you got any input?
That's the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I mean. Honestly, I think my biggest concerns are just for the ordinance. You know? But they are what they are right now. I mean, there's definitely a lack of clear definition. And, you know, my tendency is, I think I've always made clear, is to kind of go by what is defined. And because that's what's reasonably available to any applicant.
So as far as the driveway, is it a driveway, is it a road? Ms. Lane, would that be in the subdivision ordinance?
Subdivision definitions.
Subdivision
There
definitions.
are two definitions to look at. She is correct that driveway is a vehicular access way, serving 2 dwelling units or less. But when you go to street classification, private right-of-way, which means it's not a town road. Private right-of-way is a minor residential street servicing no more than 8 dwelling units, which is not to be dedicated as a public way, so there's no town issue.
Okay, so.
Right, I think it just has different standards than a driveway.
Or what, a private right-of-way would have different
I
standards?
think, but I couldn't pinpoint that at the moment, I didn't get instance.
Okay, well, I don't know if that's, I mean, seems like they're aware of that and would apply the proper standards. You have another question?
I do, I'd like to address what Mr. Greer said regarding, Mr. Krolik's mention of the map changing and the public hearing. I have photos of his maps and the lots did not look like this. So Mr. Krolik is right. This is completely different than at the public hearing. And if you want the photos, I could send them to you. Right? When he actually had them up on his easel, I took a bunch of photos that day and they're dated and everything.
So dimensionally, what the 2 on the end, 7 and 8 have changed. The rest of them, nothing changed on the rest of the lots.
Well, one of them is no longer a spaghetti lot, which is
Right.
nice after all this
That,
time.
right,
but-
yes, I do recall you did say that.
Have we turned this into a public hearing? I just need to.
No, we have not.
It was never a spaghetti lot, by the way, because ton of frontage on Hudson Road.
I mean, we get a lot of false statements being made, we just need to know where we're at.
I haven't seen anything still.
Uh,
You good? Did anybody else want to see the map from the public hearing?
Originally it was 14 lots. Now it's down to 8.
What's that?
It's gonna be cut.
Yes, I have, to ensure that, I'm not even sure how else do that, we have to ensure that what conditions very well.
There's gonna be a moratorium on
But we don't make the
ideas.
That was through,
Another subdivision
Right.
was that moratorium over
right there.
we don't get
I'm not sure how we insert it into.
10 years, I think.
word that was discussed 10 years.
He has to wait at least
In perpetuity.
Probably ought to be able to hear what you guys are
Okay,
discussing.
sorry. We're talking about the retained land,
Just,
the conditions on the.
number one, the rest of Hussey Road is way too narrow. They have to widen that. Which means another person comes in the way.
It's a nice country road.
Right up the road, where my plan is. Try to come down the middle of the road. I end up going off the road because they don't look around. Still, and move on to the subdivision.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the point to the
I don't know what else, you know, at this point, any other concerns from the board?
Yeah, well,
Eight houses.
We got 3 of us, that's a quorum.
The one house on the show, then they have to widen the finance, the next one.
So,
Guys, I need to
I
hear the
have
fair
some
and
concerns
everything.
if we vote on this and it's approved, we have to make sure that we're not going to miss anything. You know, we have to make sure that what we talked about with the retained land is applied here, and, I mean, we haven't hit this point yet, where this is kind of new territory for us, so we don't wanna, seal it up and have forgotten something.
Let me ask this and be completely frank with you guys. You can see one of my main concerns here is the density thing. And that plays into the retained land. A lot of the way that this subdivision has been sold to us is that this retained land will minimize the impact on wildlife for ecology. All we have for retained land is a 10-year moratorium on development. I would feel more comfortable in voting for this if we had a easement, conservation easement or something similar on that land.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity, a conservation easement, yeah. not necessarily that they can't do timber harvest, but either minimize or prohibit development. That would,
Is that on the remainder of the parcel?
yes,
Okay.
that would assuage my difficulties with
Oh, top right.
voting for this, which it seems like I'm forced to do by the ordinances. And, yeah.
Any comment on that?
Yeah, we've talked to Nate. Nate sees that piece of land as a potential forest as part of their logging operations and the like. He also sees it as potential for an estate lot,
Meaning one house.
one house that could go to someone who wants, whatever it is, 30 acres, and make that. He knows that in perpetuity, that if it changes and he puts a subdivision on it or adds units to it, he has to come back to the board. And so I think the board would say a second look at it in that change. And again, it has to comply with the ordinance. So from Nate's point of view, he's not going to do anything with it right away, that's for sure. And it is going to work on the 8 lots.
I have a problem with that statement. Based on what you just said, he's basically telling you that in a few years, if he wants to subdivide it again, he's gonna come back to us. And you're asking for a permanent easement to conserve the rest of that property.
You know, he's got the right to do what he wants with his land within our ordinances, and that's a fact.
But you said you feel more comfortable
That's right.
with an easement. This did not sound like what you said.
We haven't talked to him about it. He's
Right.
crying out loud.
It's where he said he would feel comfortable. You know, a lot of this, I would feel great if they put 4 houses up there. I would
Yeah.
love that.
Me too.
But it's, my feelings don't dictate reality here, and this is what we have to deal with. We have to deal with the ordinances as it is, and like I said, I think at this point, looks like they figured out a way to put 8 houses in with our ordinances, you know? And again, I don't agree with it. 8 houses is too much. It's too much.
To be perfectly honest with you, they could throw the 13 back at us again, and I believe that this piece of paper right here and comprehensive plan and several statements throughout our ordinance deem this as very low density development.
Right, did you, so we've got pretty good legal advice from MMA on the density issue, and again, as far as, I mean, I'm right there with you, all of us, I think everybody on the board thinks it's too dense, but we can't just dictate it because of our emotional tie to the area.
It's
you know?
not necessarily emotional tie to the area, it's what our comprehensive plan, what mentioned in our ordinance several places has to do with, granted, there are no numbers. But that does not, because there are no numbers, that means that it's open to personal definition.
I think, all right, there was a very good explanation here from MMA, and if I could just briefly go over it for anybody who hasn't, let me just read this real quick. So, all right, in our land use, it says rural residential is for low density. So Andy sent that question in, and they say, you know, the statement of the zoning ordinance is merely stating the general intention or goal for rural residential district. It contains no specific standards or dimensional requirements. The dimensional chart in Article 2 and other applicable performance standards actually implement what the town intends as low-density housing for the particular district. I mean, that's it. The ordinance is, you know, it was
Too loosey-goosey.
yeah, that's my opinion. I mean, at this point, we're stuck with the ordinances we have, and that's what we're judging this project on. And all the shenanigans before, I don't want to say they don't matter, but it's not what we're judging right now.
Everything we've asked these guys to do, they've done. That
And
doesn't
it's-
mean I approve the project, but it means they followed the procedure as it's outlined. You know?
Now,
I think our ordinances are deficient, but I don't think that they have to, I mean, I don't think, unless you come up with something concrete, I don't think they have to suffer for our, you know, lack of will to impose what we would like to see the town do.
I don't see this as anybody suffering other than the land and the flavor of what the town did back in 1991. And I think we have every leg to stand on and say, well, yes, we're in favor of homes. We'll start with 4 or whatever, 3.
You don't even know what number.
Hmm?
You don't even know what number, you're just pulling a number out of your head.
I could say 1. I mean, it doesn't matter, you're saying 8. So for the area
Because
that
the
we're,
ordinance allows it.
for the area that we're looking at, just this particular area, the state has deemed this very special significance. And here we're gonna go throw 8 houses right into the middle of it. And those, and
By the way, this is not a state document.
No.
I know, but the state hired these people to do this work.
And it also takes, it's a very general map of the state of Maine. And your ordinance, Cliff read it, Mr. Krolik read it earlier, that your subdivision regulations say you need site-specific information, and that's what we provided in our package.
So at this point, I mean, we do have, all right, so the completed application was pretty much submitted just a few days ago with the extras. I mean, we do have 30 days from the completed application being submitted before we have to vote on this. My only concern here is how we tie in, I mean, I don't know if it's that simple, maybe Tiffany can help, she's been involved. We have to apply some of these conditions. I don't know if we should have the town lawyer review this before we vote. I mean, at this point, I'm almost ready to vote on it, and I have to say, I would probably vote for it, even though I don't like the project. I haven't from the beginning. I fought the project from the beginning. They've conformed. They've conformed. So at this point, what would you recommend we do? I mean,
You can, as a board, you can put conditions on it, which.
yeah, and we have some conditions that will be attached.
You do have to follow what the book says, you're correct about that, you have to follow the ordinances, but you can put conditions on it. One of the conditions can be in perpetuity. So, if you wanna talk to MMA about that, or if you wanna talk to the town attorney about
I'd
that,
rather talk to David Lauren.
Harvey's here, Harvey's the new me.
We can talk to the applicant about it too. I mean, that's, we got, I think that, I agree that I think we need to move forward here, but there's some conditions and the conditions need to be ironed out.
Right.
And that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna keep beating the density thing.
No.
I go by the ordinance. The only thing I can go by that I feel like I'm comfortable with is what I can put my hands on, regardless of what my feelings are about any of it.
So what do you think, as far as bringing this to a conclusion, putting a bow on it, should we have a workshop and request? I mean, do we just draw it up and send it to the town lawyer and say, what do you think? Or I mean, we're pretty much at the point where we're gonna be voting on this, but like I said, I'm a little cautious. I wanna make sure we don't do anything wrong, leave anything out.
I think we need to see what the conditions are.
What are the conditions? What do you want?
Well, we've got conditions here of, I mean, initially, let's do it.
Preliminary approval.
Aside from all the.
There were the condition for the 10-year moratorium on, I mean, that's what we're discussing that, a building moratorium in perpetuity on there, that's something that needs to be discussed. We did say 10 years is what we said.
I don't think 10 years cuts.
Right. Yeah, 10 years goes pretty quick.
I mean, I could,
In 10 years, there'll be a different board.
Yeah.
Right, and they're gonna have to start from scratch.
Right.
I don't have a hard and fast idea what that should look like, but maybe that's something we can kick around, with Mr. Wadsworth, I don't know.
So maybe we should have one last workshop, or do we want to try to tackle this all at the next meeting, ready to vote on this thing with any, conditions? Or do we have to have a workshop and maybe craft this thing and then vote on it at the next meeting?
We need to hammer out conditions right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I know one
conditions, we need to put the conditions forth.
Right.
And how we wanna move forward after that, we can decide. But I think we need to have conditions before we,
So the one condition of the brush cutting, we know that's on there. You're gonna have folks responsible for maintaining that for their site district.
Make the association responsible.
Correct, right.
So the association will be responsible for maintaining any necessary brush cleaning and maintaining town site distances. I'm okay with that. I have to cut brush in my driveway to see every spring, so.
Have the association do it to DOT.
Okay, we'll change that note on the drawing.
So, I have a question. You mentioned an association, so these lots can be sold off to private individuals. Is that correct? Is this gonna be a built or just a lot sold to a private individual to build on?
They just selling just the lots.
Just selling lots?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
So, there's not gonna be an association if one lot is sold. That person by themselves will have to be responsible.
The association will be formed. Nate obviously is the sole member of the association initially. As each lot is sold, another member is added, but there is an association from the outset.
So, all right, the condition we're stuck on here, the retained land. I mean, we put the condition on the preliminary plan for 10 years. What do you want to do about that?
I don't think you can put in perpetuity on it.
We don't think so, huh?
I think that's a stretch. That's stealing.
Stealing in your eyes or stealing in the law, right? There's a difference, right?
It would be a taking.
For instance, I think
We'll go
if
25 years instead.
If we came back and said we're gonna build one house on that wood, I don't think we'd have an issue with that. So there's gotta be some flexibility in here
Okay.
of what they can do with that lot in order to.
10 years, maybe we're going to build one home.
Well,
We have to do that.
can we give him a chance to come back with his proposal of what he'll do? I mean, that seems fair to me. We understand, or you want it now?
But obviously, they're not gonna make a vote tonight based on what I can see.
Well, we're not 100% there, but I
Yeah,
mean,
let's get through the conditions of approval, and if you want something more from Nate on that as to what we can do, maybe we'll come up with something.
so do you want to put it in the developer's court and see what he would be willing, is that what you're saying there?
I would prefer, I mean, that to me is gonna be easier than us saying something that he absolutely won't do. And then we can look at what he does, and I mean, our intent is primarily to have that continue to serve as a buffer.
We also, I
Okay.
believe, have to.
If he wants to put a house in there, I won't get upset about that, you know? That makes good sense to me. If he wants to put 25 houses in there, I'm gonna get real upset,
Oh, yeah.
you know? But I mean, that's the same density. By ordinance, you could do that.
Current ordinance.
Current ordinance, well, you know how things go here. 10 years, it's still not here.
At least some folks will be motivated.
We will,
One can do it.
we'll address
With the
that.
petition.
Okay, so, all right, so does that mean that we will roll this over to the next meeting with the intent of voting on this at the next meeting? I think that's, seems to be where we landed today. You have any?
Are there any other, just want to make sure you've got all the conditions covered.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, I'd like to, you know, mull it over. There's no other conditions I have in front of me, but I don't wanna, that's why I'm concerned about, you know, I don't wanna leave anything out. Is there, all right, we'll open it up. Is there anybody who remembers any conditions that the board might have forgotten? Because we have been through this. Jeff?
I don't remember anything like that, but let's just go back to the very, very first meeting they had,
What do you
and that
mean?
hasn't been addressed.
I'm not following you. The first,
Because you weren't here, Tiffany was here, and they proposed to do this subdivision of 14 lots.
Actually, I had just become a brand new select person.
But you were here in the room,
I was in the room.
and this was a rumor of a subdivision that became a subdivision.
yeah, no, I mean,
We still haven't, they did what they wanted to do. They they cut that lot, they had a cut permit for a subdivision.
yeah.
The gentleman that was here
and this is old past, but it's still here.
I agree.
The gentleman was here and he said, I don't believe it was logged, and then he changed his mind, oh, I guess it was logged.
Yeah, I remember, I was here for that, and I agree, there was some shenanigans.
I think I'd like to see go back to the first minutes and see how that meeting
But
went.
I don't think we have a mechanism to say, because you've done this in the past, you're out of here. We don't have that.
No, but they could have said, you know what, you did wrong, and we've got a 5-year moratorium, come back in 5 years.
Well, it's just about 5 years now.
We just talked.
No,
I mean, I see where
The
you're coming
bottom
from,
line
but I
is
don't.
that I hear Jeff saying is that
it's never been addressed.
Mr. Wadsworth can say anything he wants, but ultimately he does what he wants to do. We broke the law,
Well,
broke our ordinance.
but the thing is, they've conformed at this point.
No, correct, but down the line,
Right.
there's still all the rest of the property.
Well, I gotta say, I bet down the line, and nobody's gonna be willing to do what was done before, because they've seen what the board has done here, and they've seen the board is paying attention when we're educated at this point. So whatever's happened with this, we've learned, everybody's learned. I mean, it's been a long process. It seems like it's about to come to an end. Nobody's gonna be happy. I mean, nobody's gonna be happy.
Well,
I think what Jeff is saying and what Cliff is saying is that they beg forgiveness instead of asking permission.
Sure.
And we don't wanna be there again,
Right.
okay, at all. You guys know how I feel about this, but that's besides the point. That's a personal issue. I'm not happy with people that thwart our ordinances. They know what they're gonna do and they just go and do it, and when they say, oops, we didn't realize. And then they put a letter in the paper saying that they didn't do anything wrong, which was bull also. So if you can, check with MMA to see if you can do it in perpetuity, because just because an attorney says that you can't, I said this last time, ask 10 attorneys the same question, you might get 10 different answers.
11.
So,
I don't
Or
know,
11.
you asked 2 organizations, and they gave the same answer.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, I think the perpetuity thing's it's a tough sell, but I mean,
but there can be conditions with that too. You
Yeah,
can
there
say,
can
yes,
be,
you can build one house in
yeah,
here.
in 10 years, you can put
Yeah.
one.
Well, I thought we
Yeah.
decided we were coming back to this proposal.
Yeah, fine.
All right, so look, all right, so Ms. Lane, do you have a question?
It is something you had mentioned, the word should being tied to site distance. I feel that the board needs to address the site distance and figure out if the word should be there or shouldn't. If someone buys these lots and it doesn't meet, they're in some big trouble. They just bought a lot that can't have a driveway put where they thought it could. So I would request that the board do their due diligence, get a town permit for Hussey Road, those 3, whatever you call them, it's not a driveway anymore, it's private access or whatever.
Well, the way I understand that is a town permit would be issued when they do
Apply for
it,
one.
right?
You have to apply.
Isn't
for
that
with the
too
road
late?
commissioner.
Is it, if it's, I mean, if.
Thank
If
you.
you buy the
If
land.
you buy the land, that's too late,
Then you can't build on it.
then you can't
But-
build on it, so why would you put the cart before the horse?
So I don't even know if that's SOP or, a lot of this stuff, it's like, is that the way
Maybe
it's
you
done
ask
elsewhere?
MMA then, because I feel like this has to be determined before they are approved. I mean, I know they don't want to, but we've been arguing about site distance since June of 2017.
Agreed, no, site distance is a big issue because the existing house never met site distance, it still doesn't, even after 2 speed limit changes for it to accommodate that site distance, so I get it, we've been pounding on site distance, it's very important.
Yep.
Maybe we can measure that one that they said should as a board, I don't know, I mean, the guy did insinuate that if the brush is cut, it will meet. I mean,
Should.
You're right, he said
So,
should,
Why don't we
as soon
just
as I
go
read
back-
should.
Why don't we go back to the consultant
should
with
do a
that
lot.
question rather than going to MMA, because once he gives an opinion,
Right.
he's putting his name on it.
Yeah, they can't answer that.
And I'll see how it serves these guys to sell lots without, proper site distance, because they ain't gonna be able to sell them.
Exactly.
So we can call CES back and maybe get him to
Yeah.
make us feel a little
Clarify
bit better about.
I'll send him an email and copy Lindsay.
I'd support that clarification. I think that, but we're not gonna issue driveway permits. The road commissioner will issue a driveway permit once an application has been filed, and that driveway permit needs to meet our requirements. And if it's on a state road, it's gotta have DOT approval attached to it. And it's not, how the DOT does it, I'm sure they send some, I know for a fact, in my own experience, they'll send somebody sometimes, and other times they'll look at the drawings and go by what's been, it depends. Depends on what they want. That's their call.
Those have been issued. Once
The DOT part, but as far as our permit for an application is something that is issued by our road commissioners. So
Okay.
when he or she receives an application, it will need to they'll still have to be validation from the DOT that it meets their site requirements, which are less than ours. And whatever other requirements as far as training, culvert size and all that.
Could I just get clarification on what he just said, which is you, and I sent the planning board this email twice asking for clarification. Are you requiring the 160 lots to meet the town site distance, or is there a spot in the ordinance where it's been relaxed that it only has to meet state requirements?
No,
You guys never answered me that, and
No,
I
they're
sent
meeting-
it twice.
It's all town, it's all meeting the town
So it
ordinance.
has to meet the
Okay,
town
so
ordinance.
450 based on your ordinance.
450.
So why is the road commissioner not looking at this to be sure it meets the 450? Why is he not issuing
Because
the
he
same on Hussey Road?
He hasn't, I don't think he's received an application for any permits.
Good.
These may,
It's not a requirement.
they might not even ever get built.
Yeah.
He doesn't issue it until it gets built. He doesn't issue it, somebody applies for it. Someone has to actually apply it. They're showing us
But
where
what if
they're
they
proposing.
apply it and
We
they
need to see if they meet the requirements.
Turned down.
You guys are big headed.
It should be
But
incorporated
why
into
should we
the,
provide lots
the
to be
sale.
sold that might not meet?
I mean, the approval.
That's not us.
We're not providing anything,
This
and
lot
the
that
information we're
approved
given that we're looking at
needs-
says that
this
they
is where
did.
the-
Provided
Right.
in one case, they cut some
You need
brush.
clarification.
That's what I'm going by.
Tim, on who?
That's what we have to go by. We had somebody else look at that and say, yes, these proposed driveway locations would meet the town's site requirements.
We
So
did our-
that's essentially what,
I think
They asked
we have to
to
have
sell it,
CES
so-
back, and
House lot.
we
I do
some of
want
us should be there.
clarification of
Right.
that.
Sure.
Not just,
Absolutely, but
Verbal.
that's the process though.
not just verbal. I don't know, did CES actually go out?
Oh,
and-
yeah, they sent somebody, they're in Brewer, I don't know if they sent somebody from there, if they hired somebody locally, but.
They
They
have a
have
office.
They have
Yeah.
a
Oh,
they have a
okay.
bunch
So-
of offices.
Alright, so they
No, it
basically
sounds
came
like
out
they
and
know
did it.
them.
So, I guess, do we wanna have a workshop, or do we wanna just go with the next meeting? I mean, we've got one thing on the agenda for the next meeting.
Provided that we've, at least discussed with the applicant's representative sort of where we're at with additional conditions.
So should we have a workshop?
think we-
We're right here.
We're right
I
here,
mean, right
you know,
now,
I mean, it
before
seems
we
like-
go, I don't wanna, it's just like, let's throw it out there. I wanna make sure that we're coming together on something when we come
Yeah.
back,
I
not.
mean, the applicant's gonna come back with what he would like, and we should have something set up, and we may have to meet in the middle. Is it, I mean, we're not gonna say, oh, the applicant sounds great,
I just wanna make sure that we
10 homes in 10 years.
if people got stuff that, it's one of those deals, like, yeah, I don't wanna just throw it out there. If everybody's got a go, no-go thing, and you know what I mean? If you've got something that you gotta have, then this is the time to say it. I guess that's all, I just wanna get it out now, so they're not coming up with a proposal, like, oh, that doesn't mean, that was not what we were thinking.
You got it.
I mean, I think that, having it, all of that retained land, I think in, conservation perpetually is, probably not. Doesn't sound like it's gonna be a big sell, but maybe part of it could be. I'm just saying that, some of it could be. Conservation easement, some of that land, maybe it's not all of it, maybe it's some of it. And then, you know what I mean? I mean, that's what I'm sort of thinking, what's the difference in there, we could ask, well, how about we put some more in common? We have common space, but that's part of the association.
Right.
Maybe part
So
of getting,
this,
maybe part of getting to that, we might look into inland fisheries, wildlife biologist, or main plant, to be able to suggest to us which part of the properties we would like to see in
That's
conservation. I mean, Maine Natural Areas Program have people that can come out and look at the property with us, everybody, and suggest, well, from what we see, this would be the best stuff to keep in conservation. I mean, we're trying to work this out in a workshop right here and now. So when we get to the table next month, you know.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that we've got some directions here, you know, if there's people have some wishes, let's put them on the table and, you know.
I mean, I would really like to see the whole thing in conservation there, but I don't think that's gonna happen, I don't think it's fair to ask for.
No.
So.
But asking for some conservation.
I would like to see as much of it as possible in conservation land, and the number of houses that Mr. Wadsworth proposes to put on that land in the future be delineated clearly.
We obviously need to discuss this with Nathan.
Of course.
We know that.
Yeah, that's why we wanna throw some
But
details.
we were just
Yeah,
talking
we're talking about what we're gonna propose to you and you're gonna propose to us, and this has to be done right here in the public.
May I speak?
Yes.
Thank you. We were discussing just amongst ourselves that one possibility to increase the buffer between the 8 house lots and the balance is to increase the area that's open space or conservation or whatever, but I mean that to give an even greater buffer against those houses, so I think we're sort of talking in one way, very similar, so we need to.
So you maybe bring some type of proposal back, and then we can.
I like to add wider spacing between the houses on 160, make it easier for habitat to move across.
Right.
To.
All right, so, where are we at here? We're, at this point, we'll pick it up at the next meeting. Is there anything else anybody has any concerns about?
I know that all the buffers, that was in the conditions.
Yeah, that's part of their,
Now, can I clarify something, and this isn't really a condition, just so I wanna know. How do you propose to do that piecemeal, or just sell each lot, or are you gonna do the whole thing?
What's that?
Restore
the buffers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably do it in sections as we sell the lots. We'll do it to some degree. Once you're in the business, you're in the business. So whatever economically makes sense to go ahead and plant, we'll plant that. The idea is that prior to the building permit being issued, the plants would be in place.
Okay.
That should be a condition.
Could we, in the conditions, put that the planning board would like to be contacted when buffers are going to be installed, so we can.
well, like I said, before the building permit's issued.
I mean, the enforcement comes down to the code office, not the planning board.
And that's another thing I want to discuss with everybody here. I have a real problem with our code enforcement.
Can't discuss that here.
Okay.
It's not here, yeah.
We have a couple of people, Jeff and Steve.
Yes.
What was the subdivision, the last big subdivision that the town of Parsonsfield had that they put a, like a no-build zone? Was that Benson Road?
I think so. I think it was.
Do you guys know anything about that?
No, I'm not familiar with that at all.
That predates all of them, yeah. I think
Maybe
it was.
you should look into that and see the.
Benson Road subdivision?
Benson Road, yeah. Maybe you should look into that and see what they did. Just a suggestion. I'm not on the planning board, but just a
We
suggestion.
still need a member or two, Jeff.
I'd rather be the thorn.
That's what he told me.
Good job, yeah, right.
Somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
All right, so I added as a condition, prior to the building permit being issued, landscape buffer should be replanted.
On each lot.
On each lot, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, for conditions I have here, the association maintains brush cutting for site distance. Again, we haven't settled exactly on the retained land, but there will be some type of condition on that.
How many driveways are we talking about on 160?
Three driveways on 160, one on Hussey Road.
Good question. On replanting the buffer, who will be responsible for that?
They are, the applicant.
Okay, but you're talking about building permit, and they're probably not gonna be the builders.
Right, so that would still be under the developer's purview to replant the buffers, but
As each
applicant.
lot.
and maybe he'll pay the builder to do it, I have no idea. All right, anything else? Mr. Anderson?
The requiring the buffer to be done when the lot is sold and so on. What's going to happen is you're gonna get the brush growing up there, and then it will be claimed to be the buffer. I think the buffer comes before.
Yeah. I don't,
That's the point.
Give a little, take a little.
yeah. So what do you, all right, so what's that, I mean, what does anybody think about that? What is that, a condition you're suggesting, that the buffer's planted before the?
Before, yes.
That's not a bad idea.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Before the,
Well, when the brush is grown up,
Before what? He wants to plant it before what? We gotta have a what?
before the,
Lots are sold.
yeah,
Spring.
right.
at least the buffer
I
along
mean-
160.
I mean, if the buffer's planted, this is, like I said, nobody's gonna be happy here. I don't know what I think, I mean, we'll have to mull it over, I guess we'll think about that, that's, we'll write it down and think about
So
it.
let's walk through it.
So, all right, so,
I mean, I can see it both ways. One is that we required them to restore the buffer because we felt the logging was illegal and that they had, sort of broke the ordinance. The other is that it causes a kind of financial hardship on the applicant to dump all this money into his project when he's got no return. So those are the 2 points I see.
He's the one who cut the buffer though. He got the profit.
Yeah.
Get the profit.
I'm just saying that these are the 2 points I see. I don't know which one I don't.
How about you?
The buffers need to be there before they're built. I don't know if they need to all be there. I think before any lot gets built, it has to be a buffer. That's my thoughts.
I think it's pretty easy, if you go by the map where the lines are. If ultimately, if we come back and you guys decide to spread out, you said you wanted to have more space between homes. I don't know if it's available there on 160, but if there is space
They're not giving you space in that direction, they're giving you space behind them.
behind, I mean, actually set the houses back a little bit, the lots back a little, is that what you're talking about?
No, but if you look at the.
Back space.
Wetlands.
That's correct, you don't have much.
This is the sensitive piece right here.
Yep.
So what I see here is that this piece in here is likely to be more of the open space.
right.
And this is the contiguous open space behind us. So that this area then becomes the area that's likely the most sensitive. This area along the road is where we want to keep the houses so that we don't encroach back into this area. So we're likely to put more of this land here into the common open space and leave a development strip along the road.
Doesn't that wetland go all the way to Hussey just about?
Yeah, it does. It comes all the way down.
So there'll be a break there, a pretty big break.
Yeah, in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whether we can get a house in here or not. It doesn't look it to me. But it's likely this section up in here is what we do.
So that sort of gives us an idea of what we want conserved and what we don't.
Yeah, I think it falls out based on what's out there, not necessarily the geometry of it.
Save this for the.
All right, so what did we settle on the buffer? The buffer should be planted, what, in totality before any buildings?
I think whatever buffer is on each lot needs to be planted before the lot has a building permit. And I think
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm going with it. I'm not, otherwise we're looking at it as some like punitive thing, and the buffer's supposed to be there so you don't see the houses.
Right.
Or the minimal impact visually on the aesthetics. That's what the whole point of buffer is. So if there's a buffer there, I don't care if it grows back before they plant a house or they plant it. There just can't be a building permit issued in this development if there's a buffer requirement that's not in place at the time. And that's how I feel about it. That's clear, right? So my feeling is that it should be when you know, if the building permit is issued for a lot, it has to be a buffer before it's issued.
All right, I'll go with the time constraint when they put it in. But I think that, you know, it's a good point. We don't want a buffer that's just a bunch of scrub. These guys, part of the whole implementation of this thing was these guys came up with a landscaping plan, so that's what we want. You know, so if there's a bunch of elderberry bushes there, that doesn't constitute the buffer, correct?
Sure.
All right.
But whatever it is, it has to be the buffer that meets our standard for one houses, whatever it is.
Okay, I'll go.
I mean, there are 20-year-old trees in the last lot get sold, and then, okay.
And making sure that they pay, not the homeowner. That's the main.
Mr. Anderson?
The buffer that existed before was destroyed by the developer. Therefore, the developer should replant it before any permits for the development are even considered.
That's what we agreed
We're
on.
talking about that, Steve.
Isn't that what you just said?
Yeah, that's what we just said.
Yeah, we don't have a problem with that, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, so, I think we've got the conditions ironed out.
With the exception of the retained land.
Yeah, we have
Back
to wait to hear back from that.
I do want to hear from the applicant what their thoughts are. I mean, I think we've been pretty clear about what we're doing. So, as long as there's nothing else to add to that.
Any questions from you guys at all? No. All right, I guess we're done now.
I think it would be important for us to meet on Hussey Road and take a walk up and see what the land looks like, if it's appropriate for.
Excuse me, if you wanna take your conversation outside, then I need to be paying attention to this.
All right, I guess that's it. We'll see you guys at the next meeting.
They're done in Walk the Woods.
October 18th. I
But there's
believe
still
it
other
is,
stuff
somewhere
on the
around
agenda.
there.
4 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
I'm recording it, and it's gonna just pick up your voices, so.
All right, what else do we got?
What's the workshop?
It's a, he was saying,
Yeah, that was, we did that.
And the communication between Greer and.
Lunchtime is 6 o'clock.
Just not.
Okay, well, you just said that.
no,
not
I
planned.
got it.
Yeah.
Not done yet.
All right.
But it is part of that.
We don't have anything else going on?
I did, but
don't-
I'm feeling that they're gonna shut me off right at 6.
I mean, if we had some business
From
to
the
set a
way they-
workshop up for, I don't think we do.
I'm great with that.
So.
I'm not asking
Do you
for
mind?
it. Make sure I
I'm
remember.
leaving some before the planning board.
Okay, I guess,
Okay.
make a
So
motion
maybe I'll
to
do
adjourn.
that.
I never said it.
All those in favor?
Now they're done.